I want you to close your eyes for a second. Picture the scene. You are standing on the floor of a massive high school gymnasium, or maybe it's the concrete expanse of a convention center.
Right.
The air is stiflingly hot, recycled, and has that very specific smell, a mix of industrial floor wax, spray starch, and nervous sweat.
Mm.
And it is dead silent.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of silence where you can hear the hum of the overhead lights.
It's a heavy silence. It's pressure.
Exactly. And standing in front of you are 4 people. They are the judges. They have clipboards. Their pens are hovering over the paper. They aren't smiling.
With stone faces.
You are 16 years old. You're wearing a uniform that you spent 3 hours ironing last night until the creases could practically cut a steak. Your shoes are like black mirrors.
Perfect. Every detail.
You take a deep breath, you shout a command, and 12 other teenagers move in absolute terrifying synchronization. The sound of a rifle butt hitting the floor echoes like a gunshot. It is intense.
It is incredibly intense. And for the people involved, the cadets, the instructors, the parents, this isn't just a hobby or an after-school club.
No.
This is the Super Bowl. It represents hundreds, and I mean hundreds of hours of repetitive, grueling practice for maybe 5 or 6 minutes of execution.
High stakes, high pressure.
Yeah.
But here is the twist. You finish the routine. You know you nailed it. You followed the regulation manual to the letter. But the scores come back and you lost.
Ugh, that feeling.
Not because you were out of step, but because judge number 3 didn't like your energy.
What does that even mean?
Or because judge number 1 penalized you for a movement that isn't actually illegal. He just hasn't seen it in 20 years, so he assumed it was wrong.
And that moment right there, that is the moment the light goes out in cadets' eyes. That is the core of the crisis of credibility we are unpacking today.
We are doing a deep dive today into a world that, from the outside, looks like the definition of precision, discipline, and absolute order military drill competition.
It looks perfect.
But what we are finding in the source material is that behind the scenes, the way these things are judged is often anything but orderly. It's actually kind of a mess.
It is a fascinating contradiction. You have an activity defined by rigid black and white standards.
Right.
The manual says a step is 30 inches, not 29, not 31. It's objective. Yet the evaluation of that activity has become, in many places, completely arbitrary.
It's become a game of luck.
Who shows up to judge that day? It's a lottery.
So to help us navigate this, we are looking at a really comprehensive document. It's a white paper titled Authority, Judging and Standards in Drill and Ceremonies, Expanded Edition.
Right.
It was published on January 20, 2025.
Right. And the author here is John K. Marshall. In the industry, he is professionally known as the DrillMaster.
Which is a pretty cool title, I have to say.
It is.
It sounds like a superhero for marching bands.
It carries a lot of weight in this community, and if you look at the visual branding on the source, it's very distinct. You have this logo with silhouettes, a commander, a rifle team, a color guard, and underneath, 3 words that really frame his entire argument: integrity, education, excellence.
And those values are really at the heart of what this paper is arguing for. Because Marshall isn't just complaining about bad judging.
No, not at all.
He is diagnosing a systemic failure. He's basically acting as a forensic accountant for the sport of drill, trying to figure out where the value went.
Precisely. He is arguing that the drill world is suffering from a structural and governance breakdown. It's not just a few bad apples, it's that the orchard was planted incorrectly.
The mission for our deep dive today is to really get into that breakdown. We are going to debunk what might be the single biggest myth in the military drill world.
Which is?
That wearing a uniform automatically makes you qualified to judge.
That is the big one. That is the assumption that breaks the whole system.
The uniform equals competence.
The idea that I am a soldier, therefore I know drill. It's an assumption that feels right, but it's dangerously flawed.
And we're going to explore this concept Marshall calls authority literacy. I love that term.
It's a great term.
It sounds academic, but it's actually incredibly practical. It's about learning to distinguish between doing a thing, teaching a thing, and judging a thing.
It sounds like semantics, but as we will see, confusing those 3 things is why we have 16-year-old cadets crying in a parking lot because a judge didn't know the rule book.
So let's jump right into section 1, the current state of drill. The paper describes this as a crisis of credibility. What does that actually look like on the ground? If I'm at a drill meet, what am I seeing?
Well, on the ground, it looks like massive inconsistency. You go to one competition in October, and the standard is X. The judges are all about the fine details, the angles, the timing.
By the book.
Totally by the book. Then you go to the next one in November, maybe in the next state over, and the standard is Y. The judges there are all about general military image or sharpness.
The vibe check standard of military drill.
Exactly.
Oh.
Or worse, and this is what really causes the problem, within the same competition, on the same floor, Judge A is scoring on the book, and Judge B is scoring based on how it made him feel.
So a team's final score is this bizarre Frankenstein of objective and subjective, or just plain wrong.
Right. Marshall identifies this as a gradual devaluation of drill as a training tool, but the immediate pain point is what he calls the subjectivity trap.
Unpack that for me.
Yeah.
Because in any judge sport, gymnastics, figure skating, diving, there's always some subjectivity, right? You can't completely eliminate opinion.
True. That's the argument you always hear. But in those sports, the subjectivity is bounded by extreme expertise.
What do you mean by bounded?
In gymnastics, the judges are certified professionals who know the code of points inside and out. They might disagree on a tenth of a point for artistry, but they all agree on what a specific move is and what the base deductions are. Their subjectivity operates within a tiny, well-defined box.
Okay.
In drill, when we see weird scores, people shrug and say, oh, well, it's just subjective. Marshall argues that is a cop-out. It's not subjective differences. It's structural failure being passed off as subjectivity.
So it's not that the judges have different tastes, it's that they don't know what they're looking at.
Exactly. If a judge penalizes a team for a move that is perfectly legal, according to Army Training Circular 321.5, that's not subjectivity.
No, it's just wrong.
That is ignorance. That is an error. But because the system is so loose, we write it off as opinion. It's a way to avoid confronting the fact that the emperor has no clothes.
And that leads us to the voluntold phenomenon. I think anyone who has served in the military or even worked at a corporate office knows what voluntold means.
Oh, yeah. It's the classic military recruitment strategy. I need 3 volunteers. You, and you.
So how does this play out at a drill meet? Is it really that blunt?
It can be. Picture the organizer. It's Saturday morning. The competition starts in an hour.
The buses are pulling in.
The buses are pulling in. The cadets are warming up. He had 5 judges cancel on Friday night. Sickness, family emergencies, whatever. He is panicking. He has hundreds of kids showing up who have paid entry fees.
He can't cancel.
He can't. So he looks around the parking lot. He sees a recruiter drinking coffee by his Humvee. He sees some ROTC cadets from the local university who are just there to help move tables.
Okay.
He sees a National Guard guy who just stopped by to say hi to his nephew. And he walks up to them, clipboard in hand, and says, hey, can you help me out? I need a judge.
And they can't really say no.
How can you? You're in uniform. It looks bad to say no. So he says, here's a clipboard. Go judge.
Warm body standard.
Literally.
Yes.
If you have a pulse and ideally a uniform, you are in. The paper makes a really important point here, though. Usually, these volunteers are nice people.
Right. They aren't malicious. They aren't trying to sabotage the kids.
No, absolutely not. They are sincere. They want to help. They're thinking, sure, I was a soldier once. I marched. I can help out. They are genuinely well-intentioned.
But the source argues they are structurally set up to fail.
Completely. They are being asked to evaluate a highly technical performance based on a rule book they effectively haven't read or haven't read in 20 years. It's like asking a casual baseball fan to be the home plate umpire at a World Series game.
They know the basics, but not the nuances that decide the game.
Not at all. They remember their own basic training, which could have been decades ago, and the standards have changed.
And that brings up the historical context. The paper notes this hasn't always been the case, or at least not to this degree. It traces a decline starting in the 1990s.
This is the devaluation aspect. We have to look at the history of warfare to understand this. Back in the day, World War I, World War II, Vietnam drill was the primary mechanism for transforming civilians into soldiers.
It wasn't just for show.
Not at all. It taught discipline, spatial awareness, collective timing, immediate response to orders under pressure. If you were a leader, a platoon sergeant, a captain, you knew drill because drill was how you moved troops on a battlefield. It was a core competency.
It was a survival skill. It was the operating system of the Army.
Basically. But over the last 30 or 40 years, warfare changed. We moved to asymmetric warfare, urban combat, small unit tactics. Training changed, and rightly so. Drill became seen as archaic.
Old school. Why are we marching when we should be learning to clear rooms?
Exactly. Why are we marching in formation when we should be learning urban combat tactics? And because the military as an institution started to devalue drill as a core combat skill, the rigor of knowing the regulations declined. It became a ceremonial thing.
So it's less important for an officer's career now to know the drill manual inside and out.
Far less important. So now you have leaders, captains, majors, colonels, who are brilliant combat leaders, but they view drill as a nice ceremonial thing, maybe something for a parade. They don't study it like a science anymore.
So the pool of people who actually know the deep details is drying up just as the reliance on these random volunteers is going up.
It is a perfect storm for bad judging. You have less institutional knowledge meeting a higher demand for judges at hundreds of these JROTC competitions all over the country.
Okay, so that's the problem. We have warm bodies with clipboards who are nice people but don't know the rules. Now, here's where the white paper gets really intellectual, and I love it. This is section 2, the core concept.
This is the pivot point of the whole argument. If
Yeah.
you take one thing away from this deep dive, it should be this section.
Marshall's central thesis is experience does not equal qualification.
That is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of military folks. In the military culture, your rack of ribbons, your rank, your deployment history, that's your resume. If you've been there and done that, you are the expert.
I can imagine. You tell a sergeant major with 20 years of service, hey, you aren't qualified to judge these high school kids marching, and see how that goes over.
Right. It feels disrespectful. But Marshall calls this the fallacy of the proxy.
The fallacy of the proxy.
We use the uniform or the rank or the fact that someone served in a war.
Yeah.
As a proxy, a substitute for actual specific judging competence.
We're taking a shortcut.
A massive shortcut. We assume, well, he's a soldier, drill is soldiering, therefore he knows drill. But it's a logical leap that the paper just demolishes.
And the way it demolishes it is by breaking down authority into 4 distinct types. This is the taxonomy of authority. And I was actually surprised by how distinct these are. I kind of assumed if you can do it, you can teach it, and if you can teach it, you can judge it.
And that is the trap. That is the logical fallacy that the entire broken system is built on. Let's break them down because they are fascinating. The first one is participatory authority.
Okay, participatory authority. This is the doer.
Think of a private fresh out of basic training. They can march, they can pivot, they can execute a flank movement, they can follow commands perfectly. They have the authority to participate in the unit.
They are complying.
Exactly. Their expertise is in compliance. Marshall makes the point. Being subject to authority demonstrates that you can follow orders. It does not prove you have the ability to interpret doctrine or evaluate someone else.
It's like, let's use a driving analogy. I can drive a car. I can follow the speed limit. I can park between the lines. I have participatory authority over my Honda Civic.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean I should be the guy at the DMV giving the driving test.
That is perfectly said. That's a fantastic analogy. Just because you can do the move doesn't mean you understand the mechanics of why the move is done that way or how to score it against a gradient of errors.
A gradient of errors.
Right. Is a 28-inch step a major error or a minor one? How does it compare to a rifle that's 5 degrees off angle? The participant doesn't know that. They just know how to do the step. You know the what, but not the why or the how wrong.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Number 2, custodial authority. This one sounds fancy.
Think honor guard, the tomb of the unknown soldier, the ceremonial guards at the White House. These are the guardians of the symbols.
The ones who look absolutely perfect, the ones you see in the viral videos where someone tries to mess with them.
Yes. Their authority is about safeguarding tradition and protocol. It instills restraint, dignity, representation. Their precision is breathtaking. But here is the limitation. They usually know their routine.
Their specific ceremony.
Exactly. They know their specific set of movements for a funeral or a wreath-laying ceremony, and they know it to a level of perfection we can barely imagine.
But they aren't necessarily studying the universal rulebook for every possible drill maneuver a competitive team might throw at them.
That's the key. They are specialists in a very narrow, very high-stakes sliver of drill. But here's the danger. If you put them on a judging line and a JROTC team comes out doing a standard regulation drill sequence that isn't part of an honor guard routine.
They might judge it by the wrong standard.
Exactly. The custodial expert might judge it based on honor guard standards, which are often different and more stringent than standard Army drill. Or they might just be lost. They might see a move they've never done and think it's wrong.
So they're judging based on what we do at the tomb, not what the Army training circular says.
Correct. It's a mismatch of standards. It's like asking a classical violinist who only plays Bach to judge a bluegrass fiddle contest.
They're both playing the violin.
But the rules and the style and what constitutes excellence are totally different worlds.
Okay, the third one, this is the one where I feel like the most conflict happens. Instructional authority.
Yeah.
The drill sergeant.
This is the big one. This is the one that trips everyone up. Instructional authority is the power to teach, correct, and enforce compliance.
These are the experts, right?
Yes.
I mean, come on, they teach this stuff. If anyone should be a judge, it's the drill sergeant. That seems like a no-brainer.
And on the surface it does. They are absolute experts at teaching drill. But Marshall points out a critical nuance that is, frankly, brilliant.
Yeah.
Instructional authority is upstream. Judging is downstream.
What does that mean? Upstream versus downstream.
Think about the mindset of a drill instructor. What is their job? What is their entire purpose on that drill pad?
To make soldiers. To fix mistakes.
To spot an error and fix it immediately. Private, raise your arm. Private, fix your cover. Your head is not level. It is binary, right or wrong, and it is interventionist.
They want to jump in.
They are wired to jump in. Their entire professional identity is built on intervention and correction. Now, put that person in a judging chair. They have to sit there, silent, stone-faced.
Okay.
They see a mistake. Every fiber of their being, every neuron in their brain wants to yell, fix it. But they can't. They have to observe, record, and here's the key. They have to apply comparative assessment.
It's not just right or wrong. It's how wrong was it compared to the team before them? And how wrong was it compared to the team that's coming next?
Exactly. An instructor operates on immediate correction. A judge operates on graduated scoring. Those are two completely different brain functions. If you haven't been trained to switch off the instructor mode, you will be a terrible judge.
You'd be too harsh.
You'll be too harsh on minor things because you're used to screaming about them, or you'll be frustrated because you can't intervene, which clouds your judgment on everything else. It's a fundamental conflict of roles.
I'm picturing a football coach trying to referee a game. He'd be stopping the play to show the quarterback how to throw a better spiral.
And that would be a terrible referee. A referee needs to be cold, objective, and distant. A coach needs to be passionate, involved, and corrective. They are opposite energies. It's the same principle.
Which brings us to the fourth and final type, evaluative authority.
The Holy Grail. This is the authority to assess, compare, and confirm performance against a documented standard.
The verdict.
Marshall says only this specific authority qualifies an individual to judge. It is a distinct competency. It's not something you pick up by marching or by teaching. You have to be trained.
Trained in what, specifically?
Trained in how to see, how to break down complex movements into scorable components, how to apply a numeric value to a flaw consistently, and how to justify that score based on the written text, not your memory or your feeling or how we did it back in the day.
It's amazing how clear that distinction is once you say it, but how easily we blur it in reality.
We just see military person.
And we assume they have all four authorities bundled together like a package deal.
That is the cultural shortcut. We see the uniform and we stop asking questions. We assume the symbol carries the competence, but it doesn't. Not for this specific job.
Let's move to Section 3 then. The myth of judge scarcity and structural failures. Because when I hear organizers say we just can't find enough qualified judges, I tend to believe them. Everyone is busy. The military is busy. Finding volunteers for anything is hard. But the source says, wrong.
Marshall calls this a structural failure, not a logistical one, and that distinction is critical.
What's the difference?
A logistical failure means the people don't exist. Like, we ran out of water in the desert, the resource is gone. A structural failure means you aren't building the pipeline to get them. The water is there, but you never built a pipe.
Ah. You're waiting for them to magically appear, fully formed, instead of manufacturing them?
Exactly. The argument is, you can't find judges because you never trained any. The organizations running these events haven't created a system to develop and certify a pool of people with evaluative authority.
So they're just hoping qualified people will show up on the day of the event.
They rely on that proxy system we talked about. They wait until 2 weeks before the meet, realize they are short, and start making panicked phone calls to the local base or the recruiting station. They are treating judging as a favor to ask for, rather than a skill to develop and cultivate.
And then when they get these people, they do the dreaded morning briefing. The paper really tears into this practice.
Oh, it does, and it should. The morning briefing creates a false sense of security for everyone involved.
For the organizer and the judge.
Yes. You hand someone a clipboard, you give them a stale donut and a cold coffee, and you talk at them for 15 minutes. Maybe you show them a quick video of what a good salute looks like.
And you think, okay, they're trained, they're good to go, go get them.
But Marshall calls this orientation, not certification. And that's the perfect phrase for it. Think about it. The regulation manuals are hundreds of pages long. They cover foot placement, rifle angles, command voice, squad formations, platoon formations.
The level of detail is insane.
It's encyclopedic. You cannot teach authority literacy or doctrinal alignment in 20 minutes. You can't teach someone the nuances of a 400-page drill manual while they're finishing their coffee in the parking lot.
It's like giving someone a pamphlet on heart surgery and saying, go scrub in, the patient is waiting.
It effectively is. And the result is that the judge walks out to the line with just enough knowledge to be dangerous. They have the checklist, they have the clipboard, but they don't have the deep understanding.
So what do they fall back on?
They revert to what they know, their own personal experience. Well, in my unit in 1995, we did it this way, so anything else is wrong. Or they just judge on aesthetics. That team looked sharper than the other one. It becomes a beauty contest.
The uniform as proxy come back to haunt us. The paper mentions this specific danger of assumption. Assuming a colonel knows the drill manual better than a trained civilian expert just because of their rank.
This is a huge cultural hurdle. In the military hierarchy, rank is everything.
Yeah.
It's designed that way for a reason. If a colonel walks in, he is the smartest guy in the room. He outranks the captain, he outranks the sergeant.
That's the command structure.
Right. But in the specific context of drill adjudication, a civilian who has spent 5 years studying the text, watching tapes, and passing certification exams is infinitely more qualified than a colonel who hasn't marched since he was a lieutenant 30 years ago.
But try telling the colonel that, or telling the event organizer that they should choose the civilian over the colonel.
That is the governance challenge. You have to have a system that respects rank in its proper context, but prioritizes competence for the specific role. You have to be able to say, sir, with all due respect, your expertise is in logistics or strategy. In this very narrow domain, you don't have evaluative authority.
That requires a very robust and respected certification system to back you up.
Exactly. You need the system to have more authority than the individual's rank.
This leads us naturally to the victims of this system. Section 4. The human impact. We touched on this at the beginning with the 16-year-old on the floor, but let's go deeper. The cadet experience.
This is where it gets heartbreaking. This is the real cost of this structural failure. We have to remember the investment these kids make.
It's huge. I mean, we're talking 5 a.m. practices before school, giving up their weekends, hours of repetitive, boring practice to get that perfect snap, ironing uniforms, polishing brass.
Hundreds of hours for one 5-minute routine. And why do they do it? They do it because they believe in the system. They believe that if they work hard, if they study the manual, if they execute the standard, they will be rewarded.
They believe it is a meritocracy.
Or it's supposed to be. That's the promise of JROTC and programs like it. But when they get to the competition and they are evaluated by someone with instructional or participatory authority who doesn't know the actual judging standards, that trust is broken.
The paper calls it a betrayal. That's a strong word.
It is appropriate. The cadets know the book. Often these JROTC kids, the ones on the top competitive teams, they know the manual better than the judges. They've lived it for 4 years.
They've been tested on it.
Constantly. So when a cadet realizes, I executed this perfectly according to the manual and I got penalized because this judge thinks it looks weird or because he learned it a different way in the 80s, it destroys their faith in the institution. It tells them the rules don't matter.
And that shifts their mindset. The paper talks about moving from striving for excellence to survival.
This is the tragedy of it. When the judging is consistent and fair, cadets strive for perfection. They try to match the standard in the book.
They're aiming for an objective target.
Yes. But when the judging is arbitrary, the target moves. So instead of trying to be perfect, they start trying to game the system. They start trying to guess what the specific judge wants.
What is this judge like?
Exactly. Oh, Judge Smith hates it when we swing our arms that high, so let's lower it just for him. Judge Jones from the Marine Corps likes loud voices, so let's scream our commands today.
That's not drill anymore. That's politics. Or theater.
Exactly. It becomes a game of pleasing the audience rather than adhering to the standard. It stops being a sport of precision and starts being a pageant of pandering. The goal is no longer excellence, it's survival. Just get a score that doesn't kill you.
And this has a long-term effect, which the paper calls institutional drift.
Right, or standards drift. This is the long-term consequence. It's insidious. If bad judging becomes the norm, the standard itself actually lowers over generations of cadets.
How does that work? Walk me through that.
Well, imagine a team gets a gold rating for a sloppy performance because the judge didn't know better or was feeling generous. That team goes home thinking, we're great. We don't need to fix those issues with our hand positions.
They got positive reinforcement for a negative behavior.
Precisely. And the younger cadets on that team see that and think, oh, that's what a gold performance looks like. The next year, that's the standard they aim for.
It's the copy of a copy effect. Each time you photocopy it, the image gets a little fuzzier.
That's a great way to put it. It creates a feedback loop. Poor feedback from unqualified judges leads to confusion in training, which leads to worse performances next time, which get validated by another set of unqualified judges. And eventually, nobody knows what right looks like anymore because the right way never wins. The standard just drifts downward.
And program credibility takes a hit, not just with the cadets, but with the adults.
Absolutely. Leadership, the school principals, the JROTC commanders, the parents who fundraise, they lose confidence. Why spend thousands of dollars sending a team to a national competition if the results are basically a lottery?
If you can't trust the outcome.
If the outcome doesn't match the observed reality, people stop caring. They stop funding it. They say, this isn't a valuable training exercise, it's a game of chance. And the whole activity slowly withers.
It's depressing. But thankfully, the white paper doesn't just admire the problem. Section 5 is the solution, a governance framework.
Marshall is very clear. We have to stop treating judging as a favor people do and start treating it as a profession.
Judging is a professional competency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Distinct from being a soldier, distinct from being an instructor. It needs to be its own track with its own training, its own standards, and its own code of ethics.
So what does that look like practically? What are the action items?
It means certification pipelines, formal education, not a 15-minute briefing, but, a multi-day course or a comprehensive online program.
With a real curriculum.
A real curriculum that covers the regulations, the philosophy of judging, and something he calls authority identification training.
Which I assume is teaching people to recognize those 4 types of authority we talked about in themselves and others.
Exactly. You have to pass a test that proves you know the difference between fixing a soldier and scoring a competitor. You have to demonstrate that you can suppress that urge to intervene, that you can switch from an instructional mindset to an evaluative one.
And here's the surprise twist, at least for me, reading through this. Who is actually qualified to enter this pipeline?
The answer is anyone who does the work.
It's not about rank. It's not about your past.
No,
Yeah.
It's not about rank. It's not about having a chest full of medals. The paper is very clear on this. It includes veterans, sure, they bring valuable context, but it also includes first responders, educators, and yes, civilians.
This is the part that I think breaks the paradigm. A civilian can be a qualified military drill judge.
If they are trained. Marshall argues that a civilian who has studied the manual, passed the certification, and possesses evaluative discipline is infinitely better than a general who is winging it based on his memory from West Point in 1985.
It makes sense. In the NFL, the referees aren't former star quarterbacks usually.
No.
They are lawyers, teachers, business owners who have studied the rulebook obsessively for years.
That is the perfect analogy. We need referees, not former players. Being a great player doesn't make you a great ref. Being a great soldier doesn't make you a great judge. They're different skill sets. Competence has to trump presume.
So the paper outlines some specific policy recommendations, the how-to for building this system.
Right. First, role separation. Explicitly separating those who teach from those who judge. Organizations should have a roster of certified judges that is separate from their roster of instructors.
You can't be both in the same event.
Ideally not. And if you are an active duty drill sergeant, you might need to go through a deprogramming course before you can judge to turn off that fix-it reflex we talked about.
That's fascinating. You have to unlearn your instinct to get certified.
Second, certification requirements. And this is key. Pass-fail certification.
No participation trophies for judges. No close enough.
Exactly. Partial completion isn't enough. You can't just audit the class. You have to prove you know it. If you fail the test on the regulation manual, you don't get the clipboard. It's that simple. The standard has to be absolute.
And recertification, this seems important.
Crucial. Skills atrophy. The manuals change. They get updated every few years. You can't be certified once in 1990 and judge forever. You need updates. You need to prove you are still sharp, that you're current with the doctrine. It keeps the judge pool accountable.
Finally, adjudication frameworks. The need for published, standardized systems.
Right. You can't judge in a vacuum. You need a score sheet that reflects the manual. The paper references the work done at the drillmaster.org as an example of where these frameworks are being built. You need a rubric that everyone can see, judges, coaches, and cadets.
Transparency.
Transparency is the only way to get trust back. If the cadets know exactly what they are being scored on, and the judges are all using the same sheet and the same standards to look for those things, the friction disappears. The "my judge was biased" argument goes away.
It becomes about the performance, not the personality of the judge.
It becomes objective again, which is the whole point of drill.
So we've covered a lot. We've gone from the sweaty gym floor to the philosophy of authority and back to policy recommendations. Let's try to summarize this in the outro.
The core truth here is really simple, even after all this discussion. Authority is not assumed. It is trained, it is bounded, and it is verified.
You don't get to be a judge just because you wore the uniform. That's the biggest takeaway for me.
And you don't get to be a judge just because you were a great drill instructor. Judging is about protecting the standards and, most importantly, protecting the investment of the cadets. That is the DrillMaster philosophy.
Honoring their work.
It's about honoring the work the kids put in by giving them a professional, fair, and educated evaluation. Anything less is, frankly, a disservice to them.
It's funny because as we've been talking, I've been thinking about where else this applies in life. This concept of authority literacy. It's not just about drill competitions.
Oh, it applies everywhere. Absolutely everywhere.
Think about the corporate world. We do this all the time. We take the best salesperson, the one who sells the most widgets, who has the best numbers, and we say, congratulations, you are now the sales manager.
Classic mistake. The Peter principle in action.
Right. Participatory authority, selling, does not equal instructional or evaluative authority, managing a team of salespeople.
And then we wonder why the team falls apart. The skills that made them a great salesperson, individual drive, competitiveness, closing, are often the opposite of what makes a great manager. Patience, teaching, team building.
The best player isn't always the best coach. The best writer isn't always the best editor.
And the best soldier isn't always the best judge of drill. We constantly confuse experience doing the thing with ability to evaluate the thing. They are fundamentally different competencies.
It's a critical thinking skill that we all need to sharpen. When we see someone in charge, we need to ask, are they qualified for this specific role, or are we just dazzled by their background in a different related role?
We have to stop looking at the symbols of authority, the rank, the title, the past accomplishments, and start looking for the evidence of competence for the job at hand.
So here's a final provocative thought for our listeners to mull over. Marshall's paper is about drill, but it's really about what we value.
Go on.
If we continue to rely on warm bodies and symbols of authority, the uniform, the rank, the fancy title, rather than insisting on true, verified competence, are we actually teaching the next generation that looking the part is more important than knowing the job?
That is a dangerous lesson to teach, especially in a leadership program like JROTC.
Right. If the cadets see that the system is built on a bluff, that the judge is faking it, do they learn that faking it is a viable strategy for success?
Fake it till you make it shouldn't be a core value of leadership training. We need to be better than that. The whole point is integrity.
Something to think about next time you are evaluating someone or being evaluated yourself. Are you facing participatory, instructional, or true evaluative authority? Look for that evaluative authority. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always pleasure.
We'll see you on the next one. Stay curious.